Right now, somewhere in your house, there's a room with no television on, no music playing, no notifications buzzing. And the second you walk into it, something in your chest tightens. You reach for your phone. You hum something under your breath. You turn on a fan just for the noise. Most people will do almost anything to avoid total silence, and most people have no idea why. This sounds like a small modern annoyance. It isn't. Humans have been afraid of silence for a very, very long time, and the reason traces back to a world where silence wasn't peaceful at all. It was a warning. Imagine you're living on the African savanna 200,000 years ago. You're not the strongest animal out there. You're not the fastest. You don't have claws, fangs, or armor. What you have is hearing, and hearing was your early warning system. A forest full of birdsong, insects, and rustling leaves meant the area was safe. Animals only keep making noise when nothing dangerous is nearby. But the second a predator entered the area, the birds stopped singing, the insects went quiet, the forest held its breath. Silence didn't mean peace to your ancestors. Silence meant something was wrong. This is actually a real ecological phenomenon, and biologists have a name for it: the landscape of fear. Prey animals constantly read ambient noise level as a survival cue, and humans evolved doing exactly the same thing. Your brain didn't evolve in a library. It evolved in an environment where sudden silence was one of the most reliable signs that a predator was close. So when modern silence shows up, even in a perfectly safe apartment, an ancient part of your brain doesn't read it as calm. It reads it as something stopped happening, and that's never good. That ancient circuitry is sitting inside an organ called the amygdala, your brain's threat detector. The amygdala doesn't know the difference between a saber-toothed cat in 50,000 BCE and an empty kitchen on a Tuesday night. It just knows that the baseline hum of normal has disappeared, and it treats that disappearance as a possible threat, automatically, without asking permission from the rest of your brain. But there's a second layer to this, and it's not about predators at all. It's about other people. For nearly all of human history, survival meant staying inside a group. A lone human on the ancient plains was basically a walking meal. Tribes meant protection, food sharing, and constant social contact. And constant social contact means almost constant noise. Talking, laughing, arguing, children yelling, someone always doing something nearby. Silence, in that context, often meant isolation. And isolation, to a Stone Age brain, was a death sentence. So your brain learned two separate lessons from silence at the exact same time. Lesson 1. Silence might mean a predator is near. Lesson 2. Silence might mean you're alone, and alone means unprotected. Two totally different fears, both pointing at the exact same trigger. Modern psychologists have actually tested this directly, and the results are kind of wild. In a well-known study, researchers gave people a choice: sit alone in a quiet room with their thoughts for 15 minutes, or press a button that delivers a mild electric shock to themselves. A shockingly large number of participants, including many who said beforehand that they would pay money to avoid being shocked, chose to shock themselves rather than sit in silence. Being alone with nothing but quiet was, for many people, worse than physical pain. That's not weakness. That's ancient software running in a modern body. And it gets stranger, because silence doesn't just trigger fear. It triggers your brain to generate noise on its own. Ever notice a faint ringing in your ears in a perfectly silent room? Or how your own heartbeat suddenly feels deafening at 3 a.m.? Your auditory system doesn't like an empty signal. So when there's nothing coming in from the outside world, it starts amplifying whatever tiny internal sounds exist: blood flow, nerve activity, the natural hum of your own nervous system. Total silence basically doesn't exist for the human brain. The moment the outside world goes quiet, your body fills the gap itself. This is also why silence feels so much louder at night. During the day, ambient noise constantly masks this internal static: traffic, conversation, machinery, wind. At night, with that masking noise gone, your brain's self-generated hum becomes the loudest thing in the room. People often describe insomnia as the silence getting inside my head, and biologically, that's almost exactly what's happening. There's also a psychological reason silence feels so unbearable for many people. It removes distraction, and distraction is one of the main tools humans use to avoid their own thoughts. Researchers studying mind wandering have found that without external noise, the brain defaults to rumination, replaying conversations, rehearsing arguments, revisiting regrets. Silence doesn't create those thoughts. It just removes everything that was drowning them out. For someone carrying anxiety, grief, or unresolved stress, silence can feel less like peace and more like suddenly hearing every uncomfortable thought at full volume. Yet here's the twist almost nobody expects. The same silence that feels unbearable can also be retrained into something deeply restorative. Meditators, monks, and people who deliberately practice extended silence often report the opposite experience entirely: not panic, but clarity. Neuroscientists have found that with consistent exposure, the brain's threat response to silence can actually quiet down over time. The amygdala calms. The internal noise becomes less alarming and more like background texture. Silence doesn't change. Your relationship with it does. Which means the fear of silence isn't really about silence at all. It's about what silence forces you to face: your own thoughts, your own aloneness, and a nervous system still scanning for predators that left the savannah tens of thousands of years ago. Every time you flinch at a quiet room, some ancient part of your brain is still standing in tall grass, listening for birds that stopped singing. So tonight, when the house finally goes quiet and your hand instinctively reaches for your phone, remember what's actually happening. You're not broken, and you're not imagining things. You're running ancestral threat detection software in a world that no longer has predators in the grass. The silence isn't dangerous anymore. Your brain just hasn't gotten the memo yet.